Nice. Okay, welcome in everybody to another episode of 410 Sports Talk. I'm James Haskell, along with my co-host for the night, DK Daniel Kunimoto. We are excited here to talk about the Baltimore Ravens Week 2 recap. We're gonna have Coach Evans on the show, and there's a ton to get into. A lot of stuff going on in the league, a lot of stuff going on in the conference, and the division. But of course, we're here to talk about the Ravens. If you haven't noticed already, Glenn is not here, having some technical difficulties. I know, right? He might just be pulling a DK and just slamming them back right now. Just absolutely cross-eyed hammer.
Is that now associated with me?
Yeah, that's DK's thing now. So look, we might need to send Glenn some AA pamphlets or something. No, I'm totally kidding. He's dealing with some technical issues, and I have a feeling he'll probably be on before the show is over. But
I was gonna say that's your thing. You're the technical
I know I'm the
guy.
technical issues guy because I'm always in a different place and always trying to set things up. And yeah, but tonight it's Glenn, and we're here to cover up and to do our absolute best in the gaping absence of Glenn Martin. So let's get right into it. But before we do, DK is going to talk to us about who makes this show possible.
All right. This show is brought to us by BetOnline, which is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source of everything football. BetOnline has every stat, every matchup, and even every live odds and spreads to bet on during the games. Think you know your stuff? Get in on it on our $200,000 mega contest and pick 5 games against the spread every week for your chance at weekly prizes and a share of $200K. When the game's over, head on over to our online casino and get in on the game of blackjack or poker or unwind with one of our over 150 slot games. Head to our website today to get in on the action. Bet online, the game starts here.
That's right. Well, DK, the game on Sunday wasn't the best result. We're hoping for folks that check out BetOnline to have a better result. But we got a ton to get into. Of course, we did our initial reaction. And, coincidentally, we talked a lot of offense. But I think one of the hopes tonight is to get into the defense. So as people trickle in, there's some things we want to take a look at from a macro perspective in the Baltimore Ravens, and then we'll kind of narrow it down to specific questions. And of course, when we get Coach Evans from Sip2Tally on the show, we'll get even more granular. But DK, I wanted to start right here. Glenn brought this up in our pregame show, or in our pre-show prep. I think this is a big deal. Me personally, I got the sense that you don't think it's as big of a deal, but I just want, for those of you who cannot see what's on the screen, these are the current odds for chances to make the playoffs, percentage to make the playoffs. Of course, the number one team in the league that has the highest percentage, best chance to make the playoffs at 77% is the Houston Texans. The lowest, the Los Angeles Rams at 14%. But right in front of the Rams, the Baltimore Ravens are tied with the New York Giants at 18%. We have an 18% chance right now to make the playoffs. Brutal. DK. I did not see this coming. Straight up, did not see 0-2 start coming. What's your take on this this graph? I know there's a lot of things, or not graph, sorry, this chart here. There's a lot of things to get into.
Yeah, the thing with this is it's early in the season, and to be 100% honest, to be transparent, I don't know exactly how they come up with these odds. I mean, after 2 games, I mean, I guess I'm assuming that they would gauge based off of some data that's been collected over the first 2 weeks and a strength of schedule type of thing.
That's what I was going to say.
Going forward, but a lot of that data is based probably on last year. And it's a moving target. So 0-2, I mean, I would assume that the 0-2 teams are going to all kind of cluster together at the very tail end of this list here. And I mean, if you were to cluster all these teams, I would still say this is more of an eyeball test thing, but the Baltimore Ravens have got a lot more tools to turn it around than a lot of these teams on the back end. So that's why I'm not super concerned. This percentage is probably generated that way. I mean, because if you were to bet right now to say the Carolina Panthers have a better chance of making the playoffs, I mean, you'd be insane. I mean, you'd be shouted out of the room if you made that kind of claim.
Hey, DK,
based off of watching
the center now.
Yeah, well, there you go. Well, maybe they'll pull pull a Bengals and, last minute
Get in and then lose in the
heroics.
first
Yeah,
round.
I mean, right, something like that.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's why I'm not too super concerned. I mean, I can see with my own eyes that the Ravens have got a lot to fix, but they were inches away from, a possible win in the first week. And I mean, we were 10 points ahead in the second week. So I'm not, I'm not overly concerned with this stuff. I mean, how about you?
Yeah, no, I think at this point, as my light dies, I'm also not technical issues, DK. I can't get away from it. I thought I charged you all day today, and apparently I didn't.
Apparently, it's my job to make sure that you don't have issues like this, and I can't do both things at the same time.
Yeah, no, but so for me, I think this is I think a little bit of is bogus. Part of the reason I think it's bogus is because, so coincidentally, the Ravens and the Bengals, of course, were in the same division. To me, they're the best 0-2 teams that are left out there. I think you could probably make the Jacksonville Jaguars number 3. I think the Rams would also be good too, but they've just been so banged up with Puka Nacua going down, and I think Cooper Kupp's having some issues. So that's a big problem for them. But the reason I think this list is bogus is because the Pittsburgh Steelers have the third best odds to get in at 76%. And then in the top 5 are the Minnesota Vikings. I know they started out hot with 2 wins, but at the end of the day, Sam Darnold is still their quarterback. And until he makes me a believer, I'm not a believer. So, to me, this list loses a decent amount of credibility because I don't care what I know your record is your record. Say whatever you want, but Pittsburgh Steelers don't have, their offense is not good. And I know their defense, you can say whatever you want about their defense, but this is an offensive league, right? John Harbaugh talked about it in his presser. He said offenses don't go off the field willingly, right? You have to get them off the field. And I don't know if the Pittsburgh Steelers have an offense that strikes fear in any defense. While their defense is excellent, I don't know if that's enough in today's world to give you the third best odds to make the playoffs.
Well, I mean, the moral of the story is there's not enough data for this to be even close to accurate,
Right. Absolutely. Well, let's not wait any longer, DK here. I'm going to bring Coach Evans in. Of course, this is our second time I have Coach on the show, and we're super grateful for it. Sorry, go ahead.
No, when he comes in, I'll let you guys run the show.
Okay, cool.
Jump back behind the sticks.
All right, that sounds good. So, Coach, why don't you, DK's going to let you in here, and we'll get right into it. First of all, shout out to Coach for making time. How you doing, Coach?
Hey, how you doing? You doing all right?
Doing good, man. I'm really jealous. I'm on the road right now. Your mic sounds amazing. Your voice is sounding great. And I got these headphones here, just doing my best as I'm on the road. But, I didn't want to bring the whole setup with me. But, yeah, man, really grateful to have you. Glenn, unfortunately, is having some technical issues. He feels super bad. He has no access to internet right now. And so hopefully that changes here shortly. But in the meantime, we're going to soldier on, right? Okay. So I want to get right into it, Coach. One of the things that Glenn brought up in our prep show, we talked a lot about the offense, and we'll do the same here. But one of the things Glenn brought up in our prep show that I think was interesting was the blitz rate right now for the defense. It's much lower than it has been in the past few years. And when I heard that initially, I thought maybe that's because we have a better win rate right now with Adafe, with David doing some things, and then with Kyle Van Noy, of course. So maybe they're feeling like they don't need to blitz as often. But what's your take when you hear that, or is there anything you're seeing on tape that would lend you to understand kind of why they're drawing up blitzes less often this year so far?
From what I've seen, I think we are winning more up front with 4. I think Van Noy's getting home. I think with the 2 sacks that he got Sunday, Ojabo and Owe are winning one-on-ones, and you're getting tremendous push with Travis Jones and Matabike up front. So you don't have to blitz as much. And I think as the season goes on, you can throw in, your exotic blitzes, your sim pressures, from time to time. But just as a base defense, you're getting good pressure with that front 4, and you got 5 guys that are willing to get home. And we're not even talking about Pierce, and Pierce mainly a run stuffing guy, but he can get you a little pass rush from time to time. Mm-hmm. And Van Noy is technically the 5th guy, because I like that front 4 with Owe, Ojabo, Matabike, and Travis Jones, and they get pretty good push with those 4.
Yeah, you're not wrong, and I think I think in some ways it could be a good sign, just like you said, because if you don't need to draw it up and you're already getting the pressure, I think that's a more sustainable model. And then you can be a bit more, you can pick and choose more as far as when you want to dial up those blitzes instead of having to rely on it so much.
Right.
But the other thing I wanted to ask you on the defensive side of the ball, something that's interesting that Glenn and I were talking about today too, is Kyle Hamilton's name. You know, he hasn't really made any, it's only been 2 games, but he hasn't made any big plays yet. One of the things that we both noticed was there was a play, I think it was to their running back. It was a short pass to the right side. He missed the tackle. Also not a very Kyle Hamilton-like thing to do. What are you seeing from Kyle Hamilton? Any concerns there? Yeah, just love to get your thoughts on his game so far.
Yes, I saw that play, and I also saw him kind of maybe grab his shoulder afterwards. But I think it's more so they're still trying to feel each other out, and I think that's Zach Orr trying to feel out like where to put guys in the right position to make them the best fit for this defense. I think that's them trying to feel Zach Orr out. I think that's them trying to get accustomed to the new 11 that's out there. I think that's them also trying to reduce the number of guys that's playing, because early in the first game we had those timeouts we had to call out because we were trying to play too many people. We got to get 11, maybe 12, at most 13 guys, maybe 14 when you factor in D linemen that we're comfortable with, and run them guys out there. And even though we got a good amount of DBs that we can play, some of them guys just can't play because you can't keep having so many personnel packages that you're gonna have to use timeouts over. So I think they're just trying to find some continuity, new faces. Orr's new. He's trying to put his own spin on the thing. And as far as with Kyle, I think once they find that nice gelling spot, we'll see his play start to pick up. Because we haven't seen him blitz much yet, because we haven't blitzed much at all. And
that's a big part of his game.
Yeah, he's most deadly when he get in that spot where you don't know if he's blitzing or not. He's just sitting in that alley, and he can either cover a guy or he can go. And we haven't really seen him in that yet. We've either seen him back deep or just straight covering somebody. He's not in that spot where you got to wonder what he's going to do. So he's just not been put in position to be that unicorn that we know yet.
Yeah, no, I think that's a fair point. And we're going to get back to the defense, but there's another thought that's been simmering in my mind. I do this thing, Coach, so I don't know if you know, I think we've kind of talked about this. I'm a distance runner, and generally my thoughts are very clear and probably more profound when I'm doing that than any other part of the day. So today I'm out doing my jog, doing my thing.
How far?
10 miles today.
Ooh,
10 miles every day. Every day, 10 miles, Coach.
My foot started hurting thinking about that.
Yeah, no, for sure. But so this is one of the things I was thinking about when I was listening to John Harbaugh's presser. He talked about the formations offensively with both Likely and Mark, and then of course you throw the wrinkle of Patrick Ricard in there, all in the sake of deception, right? You want it to look the same and be different, right? But I've thought a lot about these pre-snap penalties too, and not just with those guys. Of course, Mark had a false start, but just in general, one of the things I was wondering is, are we overvaluing this idea of being deceptive? And could that be a reason that we're having some of these pre-snap penalties? Do you know what I mean? Like, can we just line up and say, these are our guys, this is what we do, it's your job to stop it? Right? Like, do we always have to be so deceptive and so focused on that instead of just lining up and saying hat to a hat, we're better than you? Do you know what I mean?
It almost seems like we could be like, did you pay attention to the overtime game the Lions had last week?
Yeah.
They got into overtime and they basically said, look, we finna run it with David Montgomery. Stop it if you can.
Right.
And at some point, we need to do that. And whether it be outside zone, inside zone, or whatever the runs may be, put your best 11 out there and go at it. If that's 12 personnel, so be it. If that's Ricard and one of the other tight ends and 2 receivers, so be it. But it's week 3. We need to find those best 11 or 12, whatever it is, and go for it. Because, like, at some point, it seems like they get mad and stick Tylan Wallace out there. Like, why?
Right.
He's not in our, and no shade to Tylan Wallace, but he's not in our top receiving core. And then if you're gonna throw them out there just to crack black on people, like then you're giving away what you're doing. And then the same thing with Justice Hill. When Justice Hill's out there, we're probably throwing the ball. Justice Hill had 4 carries. 3 of them were draws. So
yeah,
I mean, then when Derek is out there, we run the ball. Our personnel gives away too much of our plays, and even and honestly, this is not a Monken thing. Let's go back to when we had Giro. We'd put record in, run. Even further than that, I'm gonna take you back to when we had when I first started doing the film stuff. The running back was he was number 30. I forget his name.
Oh shoot! He always had that dip in his mouth. In the press conference. Dang
anyway,
it.
he would get in the game. We'd run counter. They put Gus in the game. We'd run dive option and stuff like that. They put the other guy in the game. We'd have the outside runs. And so just by the running back in the game, we'd give away the runs. And so that lets me know that it's really not a coordinator thing. It's the guy above the coordinator thing. And so we always firing coordinators and blaming coordinators, and at some point stuff travels uphill.
Yeah, I was wondering. Let's get right into that. There's a lot of people already. I think it was like the third chat we got at the beginning of this conversation was fire John Harbaugh. Right? Where are you at? Where's your headspace right now with the whole? It sounds like obviously and naturally, coach has his own fair share of blame. The buck stops with him, like you said. But where are you at as far as your opinion on John and whether or not he should continue to be the choir master here, right? Like the ultimate orchestrator.
And I normally try to stay off of the fire coach train because of me being in that profession.
Yeah.
I used to be in that profession and knowing how it is to be fired. But my patience for this individual has really ran thin. I think the way he handles situations, timeouts, people, relationships that we know of, is really losing the fan base. Now, me personally, if I was a season ticket person, I'd be looking to get rid of them. Like my Christmas game tickets, I'm really looking to getting rid of because I'm losing a lot of faith in that guy. And I think he's gonna split the locker room, especially like the comments yesterday about and let's talk about it. Farley and Ben Cleveland.
Okay, good.
There's no, and we don't see practice film. We only see game film, us as fans. But it's just going off straight game film. There's no way that you can constantly look at game film and say Farley is better than Cleveland. If we just off game film, because we're not privy to practice tape. And I know, he may not practice as hard as you want or whatever, but you losing games is gonna cost you your job, buddy. It's gonna cost a lot of people their job. And it may end up ultimately costing us our quarterback or running back, because Derrick Henry and Lamar taking some shots that like they don't even see the people coming. Like the very first run of the game, Derrick Henry takes a shot from Max Crosby that he never even see Max Crosby coming because of O-line stuff. Later on in the game, I think on a twist, he Farley never sees Max, and we get a sack. So it is what it is, man. He has to figure it out and stop being so stubborn. He got to make some kind of change, even if it's playing Rosengartner and putting Makari in that guard. Something has to go because Farley is not the answer. And if you're gonna be stubborn enough to just keep him there and just prove a point, whatever happens, it happens. I tried to keep going because I saw him miss.
Hey, thanks, Coach. Thanks, Coach. I'm going to hop in for James as he fixes this situation. But actually, there were a couple super chats that came in regarding the offensive line. I thought maybe you could share your thoughts on it.
Okay.
We've got Massey here. He says, so far, as bad as the O-line is, the defense did more than enough to win the game. This is on Monken and the offense. Too many 6 and 3 and outs toward the end of the game. What are your thoughts on that? How do you figure out where the blame goes?
I tried to make that point. Well, I used it as a devil's advocate on my show yesterday. We were talking about this yesterday, and the guys were talking about the defense not getting stops in the fourth quarter. And I used this exact point as a devil's advocate, saying that the offense, the defense go out there and they make a stop, but then I'm saying the defense go out there and the other team has like a 7-8 play drive. The offense goes out there and go 3 and out, and the defense right back on the field. Where they're probably going to give up another 7, 8, or 9 play drive because they're not getting rest. When they're fresh, they play better. But at some point, the offense has to stay on the field in the second half in order to give the defense time to rest and be fresh and attempt to go out there and get 3 and outs or 6 and outs. But if they constantly going out there and offensively and getting 3 and outs, the defense are going to give up points in the second half because they're tired. That's just the nature of football. Unless you just got one of those 2001 or whatever the Ravens defense that had the 13 points a game or 10 points a game, and that's never going to happen again because the rules changed.
Absolutely. I feel like there are a lot of different issues along, the side of the offensive side of the ball. Actually, Massey has another comment here. He says, "What's with Monken calling long developing plays on 1st and 10 with a bad O-line? Lamar takes a sack and 2 and 19 call run.
2nd and 19.
Oh, second and 19, they call a run. Offense makes no sense. Plenty of time at 23-23 to get win without taking deep shots." There's a point to this that I think I see this pattern of the offense not able to, like you're saying, not being able to sustain drives. And there's a consistency issue that I think is to me that's emerging from Monken's play calling. I mean, how do you, to go back to that issue of Monken specifically, like what's your assessment on how the game is being called? Specific to this point that Massey's making here. Like how do you see Monken and how would you rate how he's doing even?
I've had the chance to be in the room with Monken and when I was younger, when I was still coaching back in Mississippi, and he was at LSU. And so I got the chance to spend about an hour and a half with Monken. And what I'm seeing from him now is not the guy that I had the chance to sit in a room and talk to. So I really think he's handcuffed by the man above. I really think like he has a certain, like, hey, you need to do this a certain way, for us it needs to be like done the Ravens way. Because the guy that I talked to and the guy that I spent time with, this does not seem like that guy. Because and people will tell you that follow my channel, I have the utmost confidence in Todd. Even though I question some of the stuff that he does, the guy that I sat down with and talked to and spent time with, this does not seem like that guy. The play calls, because that guy was a fiery, a off the cusp, a unpredictable play caller. This guy does not seem like that, and it really puzzles me that he's transformed into this guy. So I, formulate my own opinions, no sources or none of that. I feel like he's being handcuffed because it feels like it has to be ran a certain way. It needs to look a certain way.
So, Coach, I just want to be clear. You're saying what I'm hearing is it sounds like a lot of this direction is coming directly from Harbaugh. You believe it's coming from Harbaugh instead of this being directly kind of like purely Monken's play calling. Is that what you're telling me?
Now, I don't think Harbaugh's calling the plays.
Well, right.
But I just think he has, like, he's saying like, hey, it needs to be ran a certain way. I don't think he's necessarily making the play calls, but we need to. And it's tough to explain. It's just going at, maybe Todd come to him with the game plan and be like, look, we need to run a certain amount, or we need to feature this guy, or don't, because the way. And the reason I say that, because I just really feel like this dude is super petty and he wants this thing to look a certain way, because the way his whole demeanor changed when he started talking about being yesterday. I had my reservations about personal things with Coach Harbaugh, but when his whole, because I was shaving when he started talking about being Cleveland. And then I had my phone, and I was kind of looking at my phone while I was shaving. and his whole face changed. So I just stopped and was like, I was amazed that his whole, like, he had a scowl on his face and he sat up and he kind of, got the little beady eyes. And it never if you go back and look at it, the whole press conference, he was calm. Popped his soda and was drinking it, and he was answering questions. He didn't have that Harbaugh like arrogance answering questions. But then when they got to be in Cleveland, all that stuff went out the window. And so to me, that let me know that, bro, this is deeper than football. This is a personal under the doghouse situation. Why I do not know, but my wife always tell me body language say it all, and he just gave it away to me.
Yeah, can you guys hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Sorry about the issues there, but yeah, Coach, I was really interested to see what you would say about that, because kind of a similar situation. I'm listening to the presser I'm running, and I swear when I heard him answer about Ben, I like swerved as if I got hit by a gust of wind, because I was like, oh my goodness, like I just didn't think that's not something that I've heard Harbaugh say about a player in a press conference like that. So direct, so clearly. He's normally very positive towards his players in pressers. I think that might be the most negative I've ever heard him be about a guy. Not that he was like absolutely destroying it, but certainly when just the way that he approached that whole question, like you said, it was such an anomaly in comparison to the way that he answered the other questions.
And I think he thought about it and tried to clean it up on the back end, because he come back like, I like Ben. I want Ben to be, but it was too late then.
Way too late. Way too late. Yeah, and I'm glad finally somebody from the media asked him about what's going on. Thank you to whoever did that.
Cordell started it.
Yeah.
And I think maybe Jameson or somebody like came back with a follow-up.
Yeah, finally. Like, let's get into the tough questions here. Now, are you also, Coach, because I think I missed this part if you already talked about it. Do you believe, like others, that Cleveland should be the starter?
Yes.
Okay.
At least to see. Like, I felt like there should have been a rotation. Like, they're rotating Rosengarten and McCarry. I feel like they should be rotating Cleveland and Fale, just to see who's the better guy. And if Fale is the better guy, so be it.
Right. Because at the end of the day, I've been riding for Fale in the preseason, things like that. Was excited about him. But at this point, what do we lose by switching him for Ben? It's not like you know what I'm saying? Like, what do we have to lose? He's not, Fale is not playing absolutely incredible or anything like that. But let me ask you this, because we talked about this in our reaction show right after the game. I know you talked about putting a lot of blame on John, and I actually agree with you, DK. I actually agree with Coach in that, because this is John's culture, this is John's team, this is, John's put this together with Eric, that he wants it, just like you said, Coach, he wants it to look a certain way. He very much wants. Now, I don't think John is going to overstep in game and call the plays or say, hey, don't run that play or don't do that. But he is absolutely going to be in there making sure that it looks and the game plan is geared towards the way he wants it to be. I do believe that. Just like a chef who owns a kitchen, who's been there for 20 years, and you make a plate and it's his plate, but somehow you make it taste better. It doesn't matter to him. That's not the way that he makes that plate, right? Like, I do think John has some of that at this point in his career, for sure.
Yeah, but are we also saying that he would do that at the risk of having Todd Monken hamstrung with an effective offense?
Think. But the thing is that he never thinks that he's not going to think it's hamstringing anyone. He thinks it's the best, the best for the team, and it is what it is. And I tell you what, it's really hard for me to knock John Harbaugh, because I've been a John Harbaugh guy for so long, but it just doesn't seem like a Harbaugh-led team. Something is different this year. But the other thing I got to ask is regarding, we were talking about the offensive line. Oh, right. So one of the things I mentioned is that, like, as much of this is John's fault, how much of this do you blame on Eric DeCosta taking a risk on not picking those high-rated guards in the third, in the fourth, in those rounds where guys were still on the board? Like, do you blame Eric for the situation we're in as well?
I do. I think they go hand in hand. I think both of them are hand in hand. I think John is more to blame than Eric, but I think Eric is not to be left off of it. But I think, with Wiggins, understandably Wiggins was probably the best player on the board. So maybe you get a pass from that, maybe, But then after that, with losing 3 guys, you got to go. You drafted Roger, but you got to do more than one shot. You got to go more than one shot.
Yeah, I'm with you 100% there, because so that's the thing to me. If you think about it, even if the first 2 rounds stay the same, Wiggins, get it. Roger, we get it, and we saw some progress from Roger. We're hoping to see more. So I'm cool with those 2 picks, and it's not that I'm knocking Tez Walker either, or TJ Tampa or anything like that. But the point is, we know what we needed, and in the 3rd, 4th round, you can find day 1 starting guards. And so that was certainly a struggle for me. I was curious to get your thoughts.
At least competition.
Right. So that way guys aren't
even if you dislike, even if you have this vendetta or whatever the deal is with being Cleveland, what's wrong with Josh? Josh started all them games for Houston last year. He got to be better than Falele.
Yep.
Yeah. It's certainly a weird thing. I want to back this up for a second. You talked at the very beginning of the show about Zach Orr. And him trying to put his fingerprint on this defense. And as to DK, to Coach's example, when you hear somebody talk about the Ravens defense, like if you hear Jim Harbaugh talk about the Ravens defense, this is John's defense. That's why systemically we weren't going to see sweeping changes. Yeah, Michael McDonald is a disciple of John Harbaugh. And I think that's part of the reason why Wink left, because Wink wanted it to be his defense. John said, this is my defense. And Wink was like, F it, I'm out of here type thing, right? they just came to a pass, and that's what it was. And so you do start to see some of that. Yeah, exactly. He just got on a plane and said, I'm out. But my question to you is, how have you felt so far about the job that Zach Orr is doing, about the games that he's calling? Like, what have been your overall thoughts so far?
I don't have an issue with Zach calling so far. That front 4 is going to be really good, in my opinion. I feel like individually we're having some hiccups on the back end. I think we should have had a better plan for Devontae. Well, let me take that back a little bit. I feel like his play calling has been okay, with the exception of free releases on number 1 targets. Week 1, Kelsey got too many free releases. Week 2, Devontae got too many free releases. And if you go back and look at both of those games, there were a lot of times both of those guys got 4 to 5 yard catches that were like first down, which made it 2nd and 5, or were 2nd and 8 and put it in 3rd and 3 when they just nobody were around them. We were playing some type of zone, and they got free releases. They just ran 3-4 yards off the ball, caught the ball, and fell forward for another 3 or 4 yards. And that just, 4 or 5 yards a pop, that add up. And so even if you are not playing man, somebody needs to be on top of the guys. And then you can, fall off into your zone or whatever. But if they know they got a free release, they're going to check or audible or something to throw the ball right now to their number 1 guy. So take away the
some of that with Rice, didn't we? Like with Steve Rice, it seemed to be that same play, that little slant that he just kept having success with. I'm assuming, right? Yeah, that seemed like it was kind of the same thing, like you were saying. It's just a free ride off the line, and he's a fast guy. I think that's a good point. I didn't initially think about that. What about
Jimmy, I got a question too, just to piggyback off of that. Because I saw some stats regarding the defense that compared to the rest of the league, they're number 1 in rushing defense right now, and the front line looks very strong. I've been super impressed. Matabike is just kind of right where he left off. Travis Jones is looking really great. Solidly developing. I've been a fan of him since day one.
DK's guy when we drafted him.
That's very true. Very true. And there are other guys as well. But I'm starting to have questions, and maybe this has something to do again with what you're saying. But the secondary, it was supposed to be a position of strength, a group of guys that were, kind of thought of as, maybe these guys are going to be the best in the league, but statistically they're one of the worst at this point. Is it just a matter of how they attack, those receivers with free releases? Are there gaps, or maybe, what's your theory on why they're falling behind in terms of performance?
first part of that question, we're not one of the worst. We are the worst. We're 32 in pass defense, 1 in rush defense. So we are the worst. I think it's a combination of, again, letting them have that free stuff, because we are a bend don't break defense. We're gonna give up yards because we play a lot of zone. We try to do a lot of sim pressures, and then when we do get in man situations, we don't double a lot. So our ego is, you have a number one guy, and when you catch us in man, you're probably going to beat our number one guy, because we don't have Marlowe's not shut down anymore. If you got a Devontae Adams, you got a Travis Kelce, they can beat our number one guy, which is, I guess Marlowe's still our number one guy. I think it's Brandon Stevens, but both of them give up yardage. So until Wiggins develops into that guy, which I think he has the potential to be, shut down, we're gonna give up yardage. Now, we tightened up inside the 20s. So that's where the yardage comes in, that we tighten up inside the 20s and we try to limit you to field goals. But because we play so much zone, we try to do so much disguising. And if you got a quarterback that can pick that apart, or you got an O-line that's gonna keep us off your quarterback, we're gonna give up yardage. And if you got a number one guy that can really run routes and get open, we're susceptible to that. So that's kind of why we back there. And we got some good DBs. We just, the front end and the back end ain't matching up. But you are not gonna run the ball on us. You can forget that. Right. You can throw it on us all day, but you are not gonna run the ball on us. But we just need to find a happy medium somewhere. And if we find a happy medium there somewhere, our defense as a whole will kind of be better off.
It's crazy that we're having this conversation, because just like DK said, before the season we heavily invested in the secondary. We obviously have the All-American the All-Pro and Kyle Hamilton, and Marcus Williams is coming back healthy, and we got the corners, just like you mentioned. We draft Wiggins. But speaking of the guys up front, Coach, right before the season started, we talked about, of course, we have this wager going on. How you feeling about it? Do you think I'm destined to eat a Baconator at this point? Is Dafe Owe looking good to you, or was that a result of a bad offensive line by the Raiders?
So if he gets over 10, you have to eat the Baconator,
10.
Right?
10. He's always got to do is hit 10.
Yeah, I think you might eat a Baconator. I know. The last show I said you were safe, but he is looking good. Him and Ojabo, they are looking good off that edge, and barring injury, because it's off if he get injured, right?
Yeah, he has to play 14.
Yeah, you might be in Baconator territory, because
oh boy,
that front four is looking really good.
Get that stomach ready.
Yeah, for real. I'm gonna have to get some Pepto-Bismol. But Coach, look, we'll let you go here with this. The last thing I got to ask you is this: do you believe in this season we have the players and the personnel to make a deep run now that you've seen 2 games so far, or are you recalibrating your expectations based on what you've seen?
We're 0-2, and a good friend of mine, Jacquez Green, instilled this into me. No matter what I think the players are on my team, you are what your record says you are. And there's a statistic out there that 29 out of 32 teams have not made the playoffs, or maybe 31, being 0-2. I think the Bengals did it. I think we have the players to do it. We have, the mentality to do it. I don't think we have the leader to do it.
Oh,
that's hard to hear.
That is tough. That is tough. But at least, I mean, the silver lining to me is that it would be worse if we didn't have the leader or the players.
Right.
That would be, what I mean?
But the funny thing is, I think we can do it in spite of the leader.
Right.
Because of, and like Joe Burrow said, he said, anytime I'm on the field, I feel like we got a shot. I feel the same way about Lamar.
100%.
Our window is anytime Lamar plays, and so as long as he's on the field, we got a shot. And if we can just jail at the O-line position, because keep in mind, our O-line's playing horrible, and we're still statistically one of the best offensive teams out there, statistically.
Mm-hmm.
And our O-line is playing like pooper scoop.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, 100%. So let's hope for rapid improvement. Let's hope for exponential improvement from that O-line. But Coach, look, I just want to say I'm super grateful for you coming out. Sorry for all the technical difficulties tonight.
Good.
You are
happens,
now
man.
an honorary member of the show. Anytime you want to come on, we give you free range. Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us. We hope you have a great evening. And look, I obviously everyone, unless you live under a rock, you've seen Sip2Tally. But if you haven't, go check it out. You will make yourself a much smarter football player because of it. Coach does a great job breaking things down. But go check it out. Coach, what's your Twitter handle?
Coach Evans 9.
All right. So make sure you guys go follow him as well because he does a great job on Twitter also. But thanks again, Coach. We greatly appreciate it. And we'll let you go. Have a great evening.
I appreciate y'all. Y'all have a good one.
You too.
Thank you, Coach.
All right.
All right. Well, that was awesome and edifying, depressing, satisfying, all of the word, right? I mean, because, you know, it just is what it is.
Yeah.
I understand his point. But DK, we got to get to our competition.
Well, sorry. Before that, actually, we have a couple super chats that we have.
Oh yeah, my bad. We
definitely
get
to those
super chats.
Yeah. We got a comment here from Quan. This was a little earlier.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, yeah. So he says, does it have to take Lamar getting hurt to make a change? I think we should make a trade ASAP. No need to wait for a deadline. Did you see Monday Night Football? I think he's referring to maybe was it Jalen Hurts or is that Jalen Hurts? Is that Jalen Hurts?
The Eagles quarterback?
Yeah.
Did he get hurt?
I think it was Jalen Hurts. I believe that's what
I don't think he got hurt, did he?
Or were we talking about Tua? Maybe that was Thursday.
I don't know. Quan, follow up. Let us know what you're talking about. But
somebody got hurt.
I hope it does. I mean, I don't think it takes Lamar getting hurt. I just don't. I also don't know if there's a willing trade partner at this point, and who would we go get? I guess you start to look at some of those 0-2 teams that maybe have a stronger offensive line, you know, and you see what you can do there. But yeah, I think that's probably your best shot, right? Like we kind of went through those teams that as the date gets closer, you better believe that that we will be scouring that list to see if there's any offensive linemen out there worth going to get. But Quan was saying he's referencing the running backs. So you're talking about Robinson and Saquon both played really well and were featured in that game. Right. Yeah, they were committed to running the ball for sure. Yeah, the Ravens need to do more of that. Absolutely. But with that, you need an offensive line to support that type of game. You just do.
I mean, I think this is where EDC makes his money. I mean, if he can figure out something on the fly that would dramatically change the performance.
He's done it before.
He's done it before, you know.
I think that acquisition with Marcus Peters in impact was one of the biggest acquisitions we've ever had.
That's a great example.
You know,
absolutely.
I mean, in the impact of that year, the immediate impact was ridiculous.
Yep.
So let's hope. All right, what's the next super chat we got here? Rave Kingdom says, saddest part is John basically said, my ego is more important than keeping from Lamar getting hurt and rather lose than see Ben Cleveland on the field. Whew. Now, this is one thing I will say about John Harbaugh. John is the ultimate competitor. I don't know if I'm ready to say his ego is big enough to make the team worse or, you know, do something like hurt Lamar Jackson. Now, I do agree that he's got an issue with Ben Cleveland, but you know what I think it is? I think it's an effort thing. Like, who's the wide receiver we had back in the day? White dude, big. He was on a podcast talking about John Harbaugh. They were trying to get him on The Bachelor. He's a relatively good-looking dude. Dan something.
He's a wide receiver?
He was, and then he went to tight end. He, like, gained a ton of weight and went to tight end. Anyway, he was the bottom of the roster guy. But I heard him on a podcast talking about John, and he kind of he loafed on a play in special teams, and John just absolutely ripped into him, right?
Yeah.
And then ended up being a miscommunication. But my point is that John doesn't like the lack of effort.
I have another question that kind of tails with it, and this is something that's been percolating in my own mind. Is
more?
Yeah. Is this a trend? So, you know, going back to last year, I mean, really only a couple data points here, but like we've had some weird issues with a couple people. I'm thinking specifically about like a Tyus Bowser You know, there's no one else that sort of like jumps out in my mind. But then now this thing with Ben Cleveland, where we don't know what's going on with a particular player who should be contributing to our team. You know, and you know, it reminds me a little bit of like the sort of the Tomlin type thing where he had stuff going on in the locker room that he was just so good. He kept a lot of it under wraps, right? There's a lot of chaos that never got to the media, never got to the scrutiny of, you know, of pundits, the media to say, hey, oh, this, you know, there's issues here. You know, the coach needs to reflect on, you know, how he's doing with these guys. But Tomlin was able to do a lot of that, you know, figure a lot of that out. I'm wondering if this is some of the same stuff, like there's issues in the locker room that could get out, that could be issues that he's sort of keeping in, but now it's like kind of poking its head out, you know, that we don't quite, yeah, it's clear that we don't understand the whole issue here, but now it's starting to affect the team because we have a clear problem at the offensive line, in the offensive line, or on the offensive line, is specifically the right guard position. And then we've got someone presumably ready to go to fill that role, but he's not filling that role. The thing that just like is bonkers to me is like, if you have that much of an issue with this guy, I thought, you know, when we were talking about the roster, the initial roster, there was a thought that maybe he might get cut. Maybe, you know, he was, I mean, we all had him on our roster, but we were all kind of like, well, what's going on? He didn't play in the preseason, so maybe they're thinking of going in another direction, but they kept him on the roster. That's the part that kind of blows my mind. It's like, if you didn't like the guy or if there was some issue, cut him and find somebody else to replace him. He's taken up a valuable roster spot if you're never going to use him, right? So these are the kind of issues. Like it's the logic isn't making sense on the surface anymore. And then now questions are starting to come up on what the hell is going on underneath the surface that we don't know about. And unless he comes clean and says something that makes some sense, everyone's going to be, you know, confused. And then the trust starts getting broken, and it's hard to get behind Harbaugh. That's kind of one of my things. Like he's not setting up fans to trust him because we don't have all the detail. And you know, we're not going to know every detail, but it's not making sense anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you're right, DK. It's just a weird thing that's going on. And yeah, we need to get to the bottom of this. I don't know what else to say, but there's weird inconsistencies.
Yes. I would agree with that.
And the treatment of players seems to be inconsistent.
Yeah.
Don C says we all had bad game on Sunday. Jimmy definitely had it worse, having to endure the terrible loss, and getting 2 sacks. He actually got 2.5 sacks. Don, he almost got 3. Michael Pierce got half of that sack. Thank you, Michael Pierce, because Odafe Oweh will end up with 9.5 sacks. Is how I see this. Yeah, is how I see this thing going. And now listen, he's got to play 14 games. Got it for this thing to be valid. So I'm gonna hope that he plays 14 games, gets 9.5 sacks. But or like, you know, all the games, but minimum of 14 is I guess what I'm saying. I'm still not overly panicked yet. 5 is still halfway there. What we're asking him to do is to get, I think, 80+% of his entire career production in one season. He's got 13 career sacks.
That's a good way of putting it. I mean, I also think, like, you know, you could say the same thing about what Matabike went through, you know, last year. He dramatically improved in terms of statistics, and maybe we're starting to see the same thing. I'll be honest. Oweh looked good. You know, it looked like improvement. So all the stuff that we joked about with Oweh being almost Oweh,
yeah,
like when you take that one step further, it's like, oh, hey, he's actually making it happen. It's, you know, we're starting to erase the memory of the almost part. So that part's actually encouraging, not necessarily for you, but you know,
it is encouraging. I mean, the way I see it is that, say he gets 1 against the in each game, 1, that's 2, 1 against the Bengals in each game, that's 4. So we're still at 6.5. He's got I mean, it's still a long way to go. good start for him. And look, I would much rather eat a Baconator and have him be wildly successful and the Ravens wildly successful than us be drafting in the first half of the draft.
Yeah. Take for the team, man.
I'm down. Let's go, baby. I'll wear a diaper if I have to.
Yes.
But yeah, let's get to the competition. Or that was the last super chat, right?
That was it. Yep.
And Don C wanted to save me by not throwing in the half sack there. Don C, you consider salt on the wound. I appreciate that, Don. All right, let's get into our competition winners. Of course, we have our show competition. If you guys don't compete in our competition, please do. In our pregame show, we have an internal competition on the show, but that same competition is available to all of the viewers of the show, and you can submit your answers via YouTube or any social media platform that we have: Twitter, Facebook. What am I missing? Instagram. There we go. So make sure you guys submit submit your submissions, your answers, whatever. But let's get right into it. Week 2 competition results. Let's roll, DK.
All right. First one, over under Lamar Jackson rushing yards. I set it at 80.5. After last week's performance, thought maybe would take a dip, but took a little bit more of a dip than I had set the line. So this was an under. He had 45 yards for the game, rushing yards for the game. And we had all predicted under. So we all get a point here. All right.
Nice. All right. We all got one.
Number 2. All right. Over under Ravens tight ends receiving touchdowns. This was great. We didn't get any. So it's 0. It's an under. And we had.
Didn't you take the under on this one?
I did not. I thought we might get touchdowns by both Andrews and Likely, but that did not happen.
All right.
Glenn and Brad both predicted under. You and I both went over. So they're in the lead after 2.
All right.
All right. On the defensive side, over under the Raiders red zone percentage, I set it at 25.5%. Actually did pretty well. They got 2/3, 67%, and the only one who predicted that they would go over is Glenn.
Yeah.
So he's out in the lead now. So there's that. Our fourth over-under was the Ravens sacks. I set it at 3.5. I thought it might be a little bit ambitious. Turned out not to be the case. We ended up with 5 sacks. Good for me for predicting that. I was actually the only one that said over on this one.
Nice.
Under. So I get a point here.
So right now, Glenn has 3?
Glenn has 3. So we'll share the tiebreakers for shits and giggles. So first tiebreaker was the over-under of 41.5 points. We went, the combined score was 49. So this was over. And then the last tiebreaker was a closest to the pin, and they had 383. So the points over under, everyone got it except for Brad. And in our show, Glenn was also the one that predicted the closest to the pin. So he got 3, and the rest of us are behind. So congratulations to Mr. Technical Difficulties today.
If you're watching this, shout out to Glenn.
I'm glad he's not on so that he wouldn't sit here and brag, man.
Oh, trust me, he'll get his licks in on the next show.
Oh, I'm sure.
But as far as the viewers go,
yes,
I think we have a new winner this week.
We do. Exciting. While I try to take a second to pull this up. But we do have a new winner, which was pretty cool. Here we go.
There we go. Week 2 winner, Bel Air Ron, who's made a submission on YouTube. Let's go.
Right. He actually got 4-4. There were 3. I think there were 3 entries that got all 4 right. Mr. Bel Air Ron got the first tiebreaker correct with the over, and then I was pretty close on the pin as well. So Very good. A lot of people did really well this week. A lot better than last week. Last week was rough, but
except for me, apparently.
Except for you. Everyone else did pretty well. Well, you and the Ravens. So
see, I go as the Ravens go. That's the thing, DK.
That'll work. Hopefully, you start doing better then.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's awesome. Shout out to Bel Air Ron. Make sure Bel Air Ron, please DM us. Don't put it in a comment. Do not put your address in YouTube comment. DM us on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter, your address and shirt size, and we will make sure that gets mailed out to you ASAP. But congratulations. Look, we're going to be back next week. Hopefully by then, Glenn will be out of the Stone Age and have internet access once again. But we'll forgive him tonight. Things happen. Just is what it is. We hope he'll be back and rearing to go as we preview the Monday night matchup of the Baltimore Ravens and the Dallas Cowboys in Dallas, of course, on Henry's birthday. He'll be turning 3. So we're pretty excited. But
let's give him a birthday win.
Yeah, let's go, Ravens. Let's give him a win. That's his favorite thing to say when he sees the Ravens on. He says, "Go Ravens, go football."
Go football. Go football team.
That's right. But yeah, that's it for us tonight, folks. Hope you enjoyed the show. Super grateful once again for Coach Evans coming out from Sip2Tally. Like I said, go make sure to subscribe. Check him out. He does great stuff. And if you haven't already, subscribe here as well. Share the good news. And we'll talk to you soon.
See ya.